Oh, very loud. Very loud, slappy, clappy shutter. Listen to that again. Wow, that's a real thwack. It's pretty cool, actually. I quite like that sound. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. And today we're going to be looking at a bunch of old slappers, by which I mean shutter sounds of various old cameras like this one, and also like this one, and modern cameras like this one. It's kind of an interesting thing to know which has the loudest and quietest shutter sound, which has the most pleasant shutter sound, and so on. But it's also a useful thing for, you might be shooting on the street where you need a quiet shutter sound, or anywhere else you need to be unobtrusive. So that's what we're going to look at today, is shutter sounds. So before that, however, we're going to look at a news story that I found quite surprising and a little bit disturbing, really. It's the news that DPReview are going to shut down completely, totally, all gone, everything switch off on April the 10th. And DPReview has been a massive photography resource. If you've never been to DPReview before, and I'd be kind of surprised if you haven't, but if you never have, it's a brilliant website where they do testing of cameras and photography gear. They give very careful tests, real technical tests, very detailed in their analyses of what cameras and sensors and lenses can do. And there are also forums that people have asked questions about film photography, digital, mirrorless, SLRs, DSLRs, a load of knowledge on there. They say that if you've got anything uploaded there, photos or anything else, you can get them by April the 6th, but after that you won't be able to get them at all. And on April the 10th, it's going to shut down totally. And this also applies to not just the website, but also the YouTube channel, DPReview YouTube channel. I believe the presenters on there are trying to resurrect that channel by starting their own channel, so maybe they'll bring a lot of their followers with them. I'm sure they will, but it's certainly a shame. No more DPReview. Right, let's go on to the more fun aspects of today's show. At least I hope it will be more fun, and that is shutter sounds. So if you're working on the street or in a place where you want to be nice and quiet, you need a nice quiet shutter sound. And if you're interested in shutter sounds and cameras, hopefully it will be an interesting stroll through the tech. So let's see what we've got. Well, first we're going to have a look at rangefinders, and I've got a bunch of rangefinders at various locations on floors and chairs around me. Right, so what have we got? Well, we've got Zorkis 1, 3 and 4. We have got a Fed 4. There it is. We've got some Leicas. There's a little Leica. So there are a few rangefinders to go at. I decided not to include the Leningrad in this test because the Leningrad is probably the loudest camera I've ever heard. So first, let's begin. Let's begin with this little, very beautiful Zorki 1. Here we go. Oh, now that's a nice quiet click. That was a lovely, quiet, snickety snick of a click. Oh, disturbed only by the thunder in the background. It's very stormy here today. So that's a nice, lovely, quiet click of a click. Let's go on to the Zorki 3. Here's the Zorki 3. I'm hoping this will do well because this is one of my favourite cameras. Oh, is that a bit louder? I think that might be a bit louder. Listen again. Oh, yeah, it's certainly not quieter, is it? What else do we have? Here's the Zorky 4. Oh yes, now that is getting just a little louder, I think. Yeah, that is certainly a little louder than the Zorky 3. Yes, this sounds much more controlled, much more a controlled mechanism, much less a slappy, clappy sort of mechanism. And then the Zorky 1. That is a nice quiet click, isn't it? So I think that's between the 1 and the 3. Let's just wind the 3 up and fire them both together if we can. So here's the 1 and here's the 3. Yeah, the 1 takes it, definitely the 1 is quieter. So in the lead at the moment is this lovely Zorky 1. Now then, it's up against some stiff competition because I'm now going to pitch it against Leicas 2 and 3. And these, of course, the Leicas 2 and 3 are, especially the Leica 2, is the camera that the Zorky 1 was an exact copy of. So let's see if anything's been lost or indeed gained in translation. So let's fire the Leica 2. This is from 1932. I've got to say, this camera does need a CLA. It works fine, but see what you think. That's quite loud. That's quite loud. It does need a CLA, needs lubricants and so on, but all the same, it's fairly loud. Here's the 3. Oh, that's whisper quiet. Oh, that's so quiet and that beautiful sound. Right, so let's test that against its Soviet counterpart, against its Zorky counterpart. So here we go. Here's the Leica and here's the Zorky. Sorry, I put my finger on the flipping control. Let me do that again. Right, take 2. So here's the Leica and here's the Zorky. Difficult. There's not much in it. I think the Leica's slightly quieter, but only slightly. So that is quite something. So the Leica 3 is winning at the moment, but only by a hair over the Zorky 1. Right, how will the Fed 4 compare? All right, so here's a Fed 4 ready to fire, and let's hear it. Oh, wow, the clouds are speaking today. Shall we fire that camera again? Well, now that is very, very quiet. That is a really quiet shutter sound. And I remember actually in the past being surprised how well these Fed 4s compare to the old Leicas in good condition. So let's fire both the Leica and the Fed together and see which sounds the quieter rather. Here's the Fed, here's the Leica. I don't think there's anything in it. I really don't think there's anything in that. Now that is quite a surprise. I know that the Feds are quiet cameras, but I didn't know how well they would compare to a nice quiet Leica. So here we go again, Leica first, then Fed. The Leica sounds a better engineered sound. There's more of a cluck cluck going on with the Leica. In the Fed we've got, it's almost like there are several bits moving in the Fed. Well, there's only a couple, 2 or 3 moving in the Leica. I'm sure that's not the case because they're, almost identical mechanisms, but I think the Leica just takes it. So of my collection of rangefinders, the quietest is this Leica 3. So if you want a nice quiet rangefinder, get a Leica 3. Or if you can't quite stretch to that, because these are not cheap cameras, get a Zorky 1, which is also very quiet, or even quieter than that, get a Fed 4. Okay, and the next phase. Wow, that weather is really being weather. There's loads of it out there at the moment. My goodness, there's plenty of weather out there just now. All right, the next type of camera we're going to have a look at with regard to shutter sound is the manual wind single lens reflex film camera, and we've got quite a few of them to go at today. So we'll begin with this lovely Praktica MTL5B, one of the final evolutions of the TL cameras from Praktica. Now then, how does this camera sound? Oh, quite loud, certainly when you compare it to the rangefinders. Listen to that, that's a real clank. Yeah, that's quite a clanky old clank. Don't forget there's a lot going on in SLRs. There's a mirror coming up and down, as well as the shutter opening and closing. So there's a lot of mechanical stuff going on in there, and you know, these are noisier cameras. SLRs are inherently noisier cameras because of that. So Praktica once more, quite noisy. Let's compare that to another camera. What have we got here? Oh, look at this. We've got the beautiful Nikon FE. Let's listen to this. Oh, that's a lot quieter than the Praktica, a lot less clanky, rather less mechanical. It's still pretty loud though. And if you compare that to a rangefinder, let's just fire the Leica 3 again and just compare it. So here's a quiet rangefinder and here's a quiet SLR. So SLR first. Yeah, so this is a lot louder, but it's still a fairly quiet SLR by the standards of these kinds of cameras. All right, so next one. What's the next one? The next one. Oh, look, one of my favorites, the Olympus OM2. This is a lovely, lovely camera. I absolutely love this camera. Here it is. But it's not the quietest of cameras. Now this camera's got film in it, so I'm not going to waste a frame. I'm going to frame up, focus and shoot. Actually, that's quite quiet, isn't it? That is quite quiet. How surprising. I'm going to do one more. Point it to the light so we'll get a higher speed. We won't worry about wasting a frame. That's a pretty quiet camera. Now that's surprising. Let's compare that to the Nikon. The Nikon's louder, no doubt about it. That's a surprise. I hadn't expected that. Goodness gracious. Well, it just goes to show you live and learn. Up to now, the Olympus OM2, which I had thought was a fairly noisy camera, is the quietest, even beating the Nikon FE. Quite a surprise. All right, next. Aha. Next, we've got this beautiful Praktica FE2, is it? FX2. And this is a fantastic, I love this camera. But how does it shutter sound? Oh, very loud. Very loud, slappy, clappy shutter. Listen to that again. Wow, that's a real thwack. It's pretty cool, actually. I quite like that sound, even though it is so very, very noisy. It's a proper camera sound, isn't it? Whoa, yeah, a real slap. I quite like that. And then finally, is it finally? Yeah, it is finally. In the manual wind SLR class, we've got this wonderful Zenit 3M. This is an early Zenit. Right, listen to this. I think it's a bit slow, actually. I think this camera needs a bit of lubrication. It seems to be running quite slowly, but actually in terms of sound, that seems reasonably quiet, I think, although I don't think it's as quiet as the Olympus by a long shot. Well now, there we are. That's quite a surprise. That's not as noisy as I thought it would be, because later Zenits, the Zenit B, the Zenit E, and those cameras, they're a lot noisier than this one. This is a real quiet one by comparison. Quite surprising. So, what do we think? I know what I think. I think the winner of this small group of manual wind film SLRs is the surprise entry, the Olympus OM2, and that really is a surprise for me. Quite a quiet camera. Okay, our next group of cameras is Motorized SLRs, and I thought I'd immediately found a winner for this group because I thought I had only one Motorized SLR, the Canon T70, and then I remembered I had another Motorized SLR, which is Canon EOS 3000. It's got on the end. Look, 3000. So there we are. So we've actually got two of them, two Motorized SLRs. Now these are not going to be quiet cameras, but I thought I'd include them anyway, just because I can. So let's turn on the T70. The T70, I really like the Canon T70. It's a fantastic camera and I've used it loads. And paired with this 1.4 FD lens, it's just a beautiful setup. Really, really easy, simple to use. Much of the work done for you, leaving you free to concentrate only on composition and focusing. So this is a really cool camera. And it's switched on. Let's switch on the 3000. This one has a film in it, so I don't want to waste a frame. So this is an autofocus camera, and it's also auto exposure and auto wind, so it does everything for you if you want it to. And personally, when I use it, I set it to aperture priority, autofocus, and I just go out and shoot because it's a really easy camera to shoot. It's 35mm. It'll take any of this Canon mounts lenses, and there's some fantastic ones around. And it's a great little camera. You know, I don't think we should be turning our noses up at these auto everything, last of the line, you know, good as it got film SLRs, because these were great machines and they're still running. They're still young enough to give really good service. Anyway, I'll stop blathering on and fire the shutters. Right, first, because I don't want to waste a frame, I'm actually going to take a shot with this one. Now that wasn't too bad, was it? That was pretty quiet, surprisingly. Just a little electronic. The shutter itself is very quiet. All right, here now then, let's fire this one. Good gracious, that's quite a noise. Try again. Right, that's a lot louder, isn't it? It really is. So I'm sorry, Canon T70. You nearly won it until I'd remembered about my other auto wind camera, but quietest auto wind out of this very small sample is this Canon. And I think if you stuck a long lens on here, you'd be very, very inconspicuous on the street or in any other situation where you need to stay nice and quiet in your shooting. Oh, this weather's so changeable today, man. I started off really dark about half an hour ago, and I was shooting in dim light, and now we're shooting in bright light. So I hope the light's all right. The weather's very changeable. Okay, the next class of cameras is point and shoots. I love point and shoots because they're nice and light and simple. They do everything for you, and if you get the right one, you get one with a nice lens like this Nikon, what's it called? Nikon L35 AF. The other camera we've got is a camera that seems to me was very much manufactured with the AF in mind to compete with it, and it's this Minolta C35 MF, which is weird because it's an autofocus camera, so it should say AF on the top, shouldn't it? But it doesn't, it says MF. Well, that's all right. They can't put you away for that. Which has got the quietest shutter sound? Let's find out. Switch you on. Oh, good gracious. Winding, all right. So, okay, here we go with the L35 AF, and again, it's got a film in here, so I don't want to waste a frame. Well, that's pretty quiet. The shutter is extremely quiet. You can hardly hear the shutter, and you might not even have heard it over the mic. That's how quiet it is. Really, all you can hear is the auto wind mechanism pulling the film along. Let's try this one. This is the Konica. Is it Konica? Yeah, Konica. Let's try this one. No film in this one. Let's see how it does. Yeah, much noisier, much noisier. The shutter is noisier. The wind maybe is a little bit noisier, but certainly the shutter is a lot noisier. So this camera's going to be less obtrusive on the street. I will say one thing for these point and shoots though. If you want an unobtrusive camera, if you want a camera that people are not going to resent you using and find annoying, and in fact even find quite likable and delightful, then a camera like this is one to go for, because people tend to be entertained by these cameras, these kinds of cameras, and to enjoy them. They're not threatening, they don't look threatening, they don't have a great big long lens on them that looks like it's coming to eat you, and they just look friendly little fun things, so people generally don't tend to respond to them in as negative a way. That's a really good thing about these point and shoots. So what have we learned today? We've learned that DPReview is closing, very sad. We've also learned the quietest rangefinder, certainly in my collection, is the Leica 3. The quietest SLR in my collection is the Olympus OM2. The quietest auto wind SLR is this Canon, where has it gone? The Canon 3000N. And the quietest point and shoot out of a tiny sample size is this Nikon L35 AF. So there we are. That's my bunch of old slappers laid out for you to see in all their finery, and now you've seen them all. However, we're not quite finished yet, because we've also got some digital mirrorless cameras. We've got the venerable Sony A7. We've got the very venerable Panasonic GH2. I know this is a pretty old camera now, but there we are. It's one of the cameras I've got. And we've also got, rather more up to the minute, the Fujifilm X-T3. So which is the quietest out of these? Well, let's give priority to the most senior of those cameras, and that is the Panasonic GH2. Not too bad, fairly quiet, not too obtrusive. Quite a nice little sound there. Let's compare that to the A7. All right, here we go. Oh, now then. That is louder, isn't it? That's definitely louder than the little panner. I'll fire them together so that we can see. Oh, I need 3 hands to do this job. Right, let's fire them together. So here's the panner first and then the Sony. Sony's definitely louder. The Panasonic is the quieter one. Rather a quiet camera, actually. I would say that one is. You sit down there, Sony, and now let's try the Fujifilm. Oh, very silent. But we don't want to cheat, so let's put it on mechanical shutter. Extremely impressive. I could hardly hear that. Yeah, that is amazing. That's really, really quiet. This camera is a very unobtrusive camera, at least from the point of view of shutter volume. That really is quite amazing. Really is astonishing. I didn't expect that camera to be so quiet on the mechanical shutter, and I didn't expect it to compare so favourably with the big, loud, clanky, clacky sound of the Sony A7, which does have, it has to be said, rather a magnificent shutter sound. So there we are, the winner of that, again, very small sample, is the Fujifilm X-T3, and by extension, most of the other Fuji X cameras too, because they all have similar innards. So there we are, that is my review of my bunch of old slappers. You've heard them all, you've seen them all, I've laid them out in front of you, and they've displayed their wares. And what a fine bunch they are. So hopefully that's not just been fun, well, hopefully it has been fun, but hopefully it's been useful as well. You know, if you're looking for a quiet camera in any of these categories, hopefully that's going to help you decide. So I guess that's it from me for now. Many, many thanks for watching. And if you've enjoyed the show, please do all those YouTube type things. Hit the bell, like, and subscribe. Many thanks go to all of our subscribers, and I'm very, very impressed that we've been able to gather so many, and quite astonished that we've been able to gather so many. Many, many thanks for your support over the years, whether you've been with us for a while and left us, whether you've just joined us, whether you've been with us right from the start. Thanks to everybody for that. I really, really appreciate that support. Many, many thanks to patrons. Many thanks to all the new patrons who've just joined us. Many thanks also to all the patrons who've been with us for a long while. Patrons who've been with us right from the start, joined midway, joined and left and aren't with us anymore. That is, aren't patrons of the channel anymore. Many, many thanks to you as well. Thanks to everybody, and thank you to you for watching. And if you're not doing anything around this time next week, maybe you could tune in for a little bit more of that stuff that we call xenography. So until then, cheerio all. Thanks for watching.